Sometimes the very thing we have dreamed about, what we've waited years for, finally arrives. When it does, it doesn't always come in the way we imagine. It often brings us face to face with people, places, and pains we thought we left behind. When destiny collides with history, when purpose meets unresolved wounds, the real test begins, not just of our calling, but of our character. This is the moment where forgiveness is tested, where motives are revealed, and where the dream must prove it's not just about arrival, but about healing and redemption. Because Yahweh doesn't just fulfill dreams, He uses them to finish the work He began in us. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to another powerful installment of Hosea International Speaks. Today, we're moving into a personal and prophetic portion of Joseph's life, Genesis chapter 42. He's not only placed as second in command to oversee the gathering of the grain for the famine that was about to come in 7 years, but Psalm 105 mentions something else that Joseph was in charge of. He has also had the power to bind the Pharaoh, his princes, at his will. You can see that in Psalm 105, 22 and 23. And he was to teach his elders wisdom. The binding or the imprisoning of the princes could be those who were in Pharaoh's ranks that might have been jealous of Joseph's position. And Joseph also did a little teaching, instructing the elders in the area of wisdom. Note there are those who might become jealous of what you have attained to and may also seek to unseat you. Okay, back to Joseph, Egypt, and the state of affairs that are before him. The famine has struck, and it has struck hard. The years of plenty are gone. And for the first time in over 20 years, the dreamer will face those who try to destroy the dream. But here's the question we're asking. What happens when Yahweh brings your past face to face with your purpose? Let's find out. Now, the famine spreads. The chapter opens with Jacob, Joseph's father, hearing there's grain in Egypt. And he looks up at his 10 sons and says something interesting. Why do you look at one another? You can see that in 42:1. It's more than a casual question. It's a rebuke. These brothers are paralyzed, not just by the famine, but by guilt, by fear, and by the shadows of their sin. Egypt? You want us to go down into Egypt? Remember back in chapter 37, they sold Joseph to Ishmaelites who were heading down to the very place where their brother was more than 20 years prior heading. But again, what could have happened to Joseph was probably not in their minds, or could it? Remind them of Joseph. Anyway, Jacob sends his 10 sons, but not Benjamin. Why? Because Jacob is still grieving Joseph and refuses to risk the other son from Rachel. This sets the tone. This is no ordinary trip. This is a divine setup. The dream meets reality. Verse 6 is the fulfillment of the dream Joseph had in chapter 37 of Genesis. Joseph was governor over the land. And his brothers, plural, came and bowed themselves down before him with their faces to the earth. Let's pause. What Yahweh showed Joseph at 17 is now happening at 39. It took over 2 decades, including betrayal, slavery, and prison. But the vision is now a reality. Joseph doesn't reveal himself immediately. Instead, he speaks harshly, disguising himself, and accuses them of spying. Why? Because it isn't revenge. This is refinement. Joseph isn't trying to punish them. He's trying to test their hearts. You see, Yahweh often brings us back to old places, not to wound us, but to see if we're healed. Joseph needs to know, are my brothers the same men who threw me into pit, or have they changed? Joseph's first test is simple: honesty and integrity. The brothers insist they're not spies. They say there are 12 brothers. The youngest is with their father, and one is no more. The phrase "no more" refers to Joseph. Imagine hearing that about yourself. Joseph demands proof. They must bring Benjamin, and one must stay as a hostage. He locks them up for 3 days. Doesn't this mirror their own sins, what they did to Joseph some 20 years prior? Just as they once locked up Joseph and separated him from his family, now they are imprisoned and separated. When he releases them, with Simeon kept in custody, they begin to wrestle with guilt. Listen to what they say. Verse 21, "We are guilty concerning our brother. We saw the distress of his soul, but we would not listen." It's the first time in the narrative we see confession. Conscience is awakening. This isn't just hunger. They're starting to hunger for righteousness. Reconciliation begins with conviction. Joseph understands everything they're saying, but he pretends not to. He turns away and he begins to weep. Why? Because this is not just justice. It's mercy in process. Joseph sees that Yahweh is working. The brothers are changing. Their hardened hearts are softening. This is the important principle. Before Yahweh brings reconciliation, he brings conviction. Before there can be healing, there must be honesty. Joseph secretly returns their silver into their grain sacks. This isn't a mistake. It's a test. Will they turn to grain, and will they take the grain and run? Or will they return and face the truth? When they return home and open the sacks, they're terrified. Joseph, already grieving, and cries out. Verse 36, "You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And now you want to take Benjamin?" Jacob still doesn't trust his sons. The family is fractured, but Yahweh's not finished. Now we see personal application. Genesis 42 shows us that Yahweh's not just interested in promotion. He's interested in purification. Joseph is in power, but Yahweh is not done with his family. This chapter is about heart testing, honest confession, and sowing the seeds of reconciliation. Here are some questions for you. Is there a part of your past Yahweh is bringing back into view, not to shame you, but to redeem it? Are you willing to face the test of integrity and walk through uncomfortable truth? And if you're the Joseph in this story, will you allow Yahweh to use your position to bring healing rather than hurt? Yahweh's plan is always restoration, but he often begins by exposing the cracks. Before the family can be healed, the heart has to be humbled. And in closing for this week, Genesis 42, it's not just about grain in famine. It's about grace in the midst of guilt. Joseph is beginning to see that the dream wasn't about exaltation. It was about salvation. And the brothers are beginning to learn the truth cannot be buried, not even for 20 years. Now, if this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who may be walking through their own refining moment. And if you like to, just hit the like button. And if you have yet to subscribe, now would be a good time. And you can write me anytime at hoseainternational@yahoo.com or hoseaintspeaks@gmail.com. And if you wish to give, you can scan any one of the 2 QR codes on your screen. Until next time, stay watchful, stay humbled, and stay aligned with His purpose. I'm Dr. Ray, and this has been another soul-searching session of Hosea International Speaks.